Hello everyone. This is the 31st part of the story, Magical Journey in Harry Potter World. Chapter 93, Conquering Poseidon's Wrath. Sound worked differently when you were inside water. It wasn't possible to tell from what direction it was coming or how far away it was. You probably would hear high-pitched sounds miss on land, and suddenly turn deaf to low rumbles that one would typically hear. When on dry land, sound traveled in waves through the air. When those waves reached the ear, they vibrated the tiny audio bones in the inner ear. But while underwater, the sound waves didn't move through the air, they moved through the water. Underwater, those sound waves didn't vibrate the audio bones in the inner ear. They went straight to the skull bones and vibrated that heavy bone that was behind the ear. Because of that, one would hear higher frequencies underwater but lose lower ones, and would get a disrupted sense of direction and depth. And that entire experience turned chaotic when swimming inside turbulent, moving waters. The water sounds were so loud that nothing else was audible. At that moment, Quinn was experiencing all that, as he was frowning through his swimming goggles. He was looking towards the center of the vortex, and in spite of the moving water that reduced visibility, Quinn knew that the center of the vortex was the place he had to go. But getting there was what Quinn was working towards. And it was the one thing he had been working on for close to 2 weeks. After getting comfortable, and Quinn used the word in the loosest way possible, in the vortex, Quinn realized that the water whirlpool wasn't the typical whirlpool formed in sea and oceans. Typical maelstroms would suck a person or objects down and towards the center, where the pulling force was maximum. But this vortex wasn't like that. After going there every day, Quinn realized that the vortex was a thick water ring and not a swirl that sucked water. Quinn realized this when he tried to stay in the vortex for a long continuous stretch. In that long stretch, Quinn realized he was going around in circles, not moving inside or outside from where he was dropped into the water. In the following few days after that revelation, Quinn tried to move towards the center of the ring, but soon found that to move laterally in the vortex was the true challenge. The resistance inside the water due to the high speeds was so harsh that Quinn couldn't move side to side, and for a few days, all he could do was an experiment with water magic to move to the other side. But today, Quinn had come prepared with an approach that would help him move laterally inside the water. Okay, let's start the test, thought Quinn as he looked to his front, and all he could see was water just like he did every time. The shades of blue were all Quinn saw when he was inside the water maelstrom. Train tracks were the source of Quinn's inspiration, train track shifters, to be exact. A train track switch was a mechanical installation that enabled railway trains to be guided from one track to another, such as at a railway junction or where a spur or siding branches off. Quinn was treating the circular ring he was swimming in as a closed circular train track. Quinn wanted to create a temporary switch that would forcibly shift him to another track closer to the vortex's center. The flow of water was pushing Quinn forward, and he wanted to create an external force that would shortly alter the flow of the water, so he could create a relay from his track to another track to his side. Come on, water magic. Calling upon his magic from the depth of his magic core, he gathered more and more magic. The magic within him rolled in waves as it got stronger and stronger. When Quinn thought it was enough, he released it in a single burst in front of him in the water. An Arctic blue burst of magic came out of Quinn and shot forward. The magic was supposed to push the water flow to the side so that Quinn could simply flow into that altered flow an inch closer to the center. Quinn widened his eyes when he saw that instead of signs of water flowing sideways, the water in front of him blew up. Oh, shit, screamed Quinn, immediately curled his body into a ball and braced for impact. Quinn knew what was about to come. He knew that he wasn't going to be blasted back. Oh, no, the circular flow of the water ring mixed with the disturbance he caused had created a random flow of water. He entered the disturbed zone and was immediately spinned in random directions. It was like a ball spinning on multiple axes. Quinn lost control over his body as the water current spun him at high speed. I am getting dizzy, stuttered Quinn after trying to regain balance, but the pressure around his body was too much for him to open up. He injected magic into the safety insignia and teleported away from the whirlpool. In the main room, Quinn stumbled as he tried to stand up. Oh, my heavens, come on, world, stop moving, said Quinn as he closed his eyes, laying on the floor. He put a hand on his mouth and croaked, don't vomit. Don't vomit, just don't. After calming down, Quinn stood up, staying still for a second before taking a deep breath. "I'm going to pee in there," muttered Quinn as he entered the water entrance. Scene break. For an entire week, Quinn struggled to form an altered flow that would allow him to create a shift and move closer to the center. Every day, Quinn would go inside the water vortex at least 24 times and repeatedly fail time and time again. Hundreds of bursts of water magic, each different from the last, were tested inside the harsh conditions of the vortex. A lot of them blew up in his face. Many of the attempts caused him to slam into walls of water resulting from the magic reacting with the water. Some didn't faze the water, even a single bit. Others caused him to spin around so much that he was on the urge to vomit out his stomach's contents. But after those hundreds of tests, Quinn slowly collected data and experience using water magic to control the turbulent water maintained by magic. In a way, this is similar to the first vault, thought Quinn. He recalled the snowflake icicle that had blocked his way for months. The ice was resisting my magic, and now, this water's strong flow is resisting my magic. Breakthroughs came naturally after many attempts. It was just a matter of time before Quinn could figure out how to alter the flow that would move him closer to the center. "Come on, make way for me, magic," said Quinn as he collected magic and changed its nature into water magic. The Arctic blue magic emerged in front of Quinn and grew brighter as it expanded in size before contracting into a tiny sphere. It shot forward and, after a bright flash, the water that was following its intended path suddenly shifted at an angle. "Let's go," exclaimed Quinn, and with a high swimming speed, he flowed into the altered flow and moved closer to the center. "Yes," celebrated his success Quinn. "That was a solid 3-meter shift." Quinn always dropped at 60 meters from the center, so he needed to create around 20 shifts to get to the center. Gulping in a bottle full of water, Quinn felt the breath return to him and closed his eyes to focus. "This is going to take time. Let's see if I can get to the center today." He wasn't able to get it done that day. Quinn spent around 2 to 3 hours every day inside the vault. Any more than that would take time out of his daily schedule. He had to attend classes, spend time in the AID office and complete requests, his 2 daily workout sessions, study magic in the library, practice using magic inside the room of requirements, and spend time eating and socializing. If he spent more time in the vault, he would be reverting back to his second year, where he was spending too much time on other things. Scene break. It took another 2 days until Quinn was fast enough to cover the 60 meters in 3-meter shifts before time ran out. "One more shift and I'll be inside the center," noted Quinn as he looked to the side. He could faintly see the boundary where the water ended. The circular water whirlpool had a 5-meter waterless wide center. Quinn saw it every time he fell into the water. In fact, in the beginning, which was a few days ago, Quinn would try to get into the center without entering the water. He would try to use the seize and pull spell to fasten himself to a wall or the ceiling, but they were too far away for Quinn to get any use out of them. Transfiguring an object underneath while riding it using levitation also didn't work. The transfigured material would glow red and immediately vanish, and Quinn would drop into the water. He had even tried to get a broom inside, but it wouldn't take flight no matter what, and once again, Quinn would drop inside the water. Because of that, he had lost the broom he had used since he was 8 years old. The wood brutally snapped because of the turbulent flow, and the pieces flew away before Quinn could get to them. The ward administration inside the expanded place was so extensive that Quinn didn't have a choice but to get to the center via the water. One last time, thought Quinn, gathering his magic and shooting it for the final time. The water flow changed and was now aimed towards the center. Quinn naturally swam with the flow, and in a moment, his head emerged from the water. "I did it," exclaimed Quinn, but his eyes widened when he realized that with his exit speed, his body was going to enter the water from the opposite side. "Oh, hell!" "No," yelled Quinn and immediately killed his fall with arresto momentum. He stopped right in the middle of the center of the vortex. He looked down and saw another triangular entrance on the floor, although this one also was filled with water. As he dropped, Quinn saw words appear above an edge of a triangle. "Tehom's Delight." Quinn stopped just above the entrance and stared at the words etched on the floor. "There's another place after this?" But then the words at the first gate flashed in his mind. "The trials are long and arduous." It was trials, plural. All right, that checks it out, nodded Quinn. Then his eyes went to the name of the next trial. Tihom's Delight? Quinn tilted his head in cluelessness. Who the hell is Tihom? Damn, another god or someone. But that wasn't the thing that Quinn was mainly concerned about. The other word was more concerning to him. Delight? Yeah, no way this is anything good or delightful. Quinn didn't for a second believe that the positive-sounding words in the title were anything but negative. That just screams trouble, scoffed Quinn and shook his head. He went silent and stared at the water inside the entrance. Should I go in? Contemplated Quinn. He had just spent a lot of time slowly shifting 60 meters, and he wasn't sure if he wanted to drop down into another trial. Should I research Tihom before going in? Or should I just go and see what's inside? He felt the insignia on his arm and was reminded of its existence. I have the teleportation insignia. I can always pull out at any moment, mused Quinn. It was the safety mechanism that would pull him out immediately the moment he activated it. Yeah, I should check it out. With a sharp exhale, Quinn released the magic holding him in place and sunk into the water. He felt the same tug as the last entrance and the momentary loss of sensation. But this time, his sense of sight didn't return. He could feel the water against his skin, his ears picked up sounds, he could smell some scent of water and taste the water as he gulped it down. But he couldn't see anything through his eyes. Darkness dominated his vision as he turned in the water, trying to see anything. Quinn felt fear grip his heart as he looked around. Suddenly losing your sight wasn't a pleasant feeling. Quinn could feel his heart racing as, no matter what direction he turned, he didn't manage to see anything. Okay, this is freaking me out. I need to get out. I need to get out, right now, thundered Quinn and activated the safety insignia. The next second, he was back in the stone cave, and to Quinn's relief, his sight was back along with all his other senses. Oh! Colors, pretty colors, and light, smiled Quinn as he stared at the crystal light sticking out of the ceiling. Oh, I love sight. Quinn placed his hand on his beating heart and took deep breaths to calm himself down. Yeah, what could go wrong, indeed? Even though Quinn hadn't gotten injured, he would have ended up extremely scared if his vision didn't return after he was teleported. At that moment, Quinn didn't think it would be another trial, he was just worried about his eyes. Delight, my ass, spat out Quinn in displeasure. He looked back to check something and saw that the triangular entrance in the dome's wall still had the words Poseidon's Wrath etched into the stone above it. Oh! Don't tell me I have to go through the Poseidon's Wrath before I reach the Tihom's Delight, complained Quinn. He had completed the first trial, so he was expecting the door to change, but it didn't. Will I have to go through every trial to get to the one at the end of the line? That sucks. Quinn only had completed the first of many trials. Nonetheless, Poseidon's Wrath had been overcome. Chapter 94, Tihom, Alchemy, and Sub-Zero. Tihom, literally, the deep, or the abyss, read Quinn from another old tome in the Hogwarts library. After having a scare of a lifetime inside the second trial, Tihom's Delight, Quinn's first course of action was to see who or what Tihom in the title was. Refers to the great deep of the primordial waters of creation in the Bible, hummed Quinn as he summarized the information he had been able to get on Tihom. An entity from the Christian pantheon mentioned in the Old Testament Bible, Book of Genesis, Genesis 1 verse 2. Tapping his finger on the table, Quinn thought about his experience of no sight in the second trial room. The complete darkness had taken him by surprise. Being robbed of the sense that he used the most was something deeply unsettling. The entire vault is revolving around water, and then there was the word law in the text. The trials are definitely based on something that can be found in water. Quinn glanced down at the word Tihom on the parchment of the tome. There is no light in the depth of an ocean, and Tihom symbolizes deep or abyss. Having no light must be the reason I wasn't able to see anything but darkness, theorized Quinn. That meant that my sense of sight was okay, but there was no light. Thus, I couldn't see. Ah, that is just plain annoying. I respect that. Another thing that Quinn focused on was the ambience of the second trial room. I was inside a water-filled region with no surface beneath my feet, remembered Quinn, while closing his eyes to relive that moment. Calm water with no violent, turbulent flow like the first room. the temperature, slightly cold. Even though he had been only inside the second trial room for less than 30 seconds, Quinn ended up having some questions. What's the aim of the second trial? Do I need to find another entrance? How do I navigate there? Is there something in there other than me? What danger there is? But spending mere seconds inside the second trial room wasn't enough to answer any of the questions. If Quinn wanted to get answers, then he would need to dive in there and get the lay of the land. Then his thoughts went further beyond the second trial room. How many trials are in the third vault? The third vault was still covered in mystery because Quinn couldn't see the end, and that unknown element slightly excited Quinn. Mystery creates wonder, and wonder was the basis of man's desire to understand the world. And Quinn wanted to understand everything. It was in his nature. Scene break. Alchemy was a branch of magic, an ancient discipline that involved studying the secrets of composition, structure, and magical properties of the four classical elements, as well as the transmutation and transfiguration of substances and, thus, it was connected intimately with potion brewing, charms and transfiguration. Of course, Quinn didn't believe in the four classical elements because of the atomic theory. But he did believe in the fifth element, which he considered to be magic itself. Back to alchemy. The branch of magic was a beautiful conjugation of various magics: transfiguration, transmutation, potions, herbology, metallurgy, charms, and other magics used to supplement it according to its needs. Alchemy was said to be the ultimate transformation magic. Alchemic counterparts were many times more potent than their potion counterparts. Properties could be permanently added to objects, something that was extremely difficult with charms. It could convert materials into completely different states from their initial forms, something that could only be a work of transfiguration but permanent. Today, inside the room of requirement, Quinn was in the middle of performing alchemy. The young alchemist was in the midst of one of his long-term projects. The project was still in its initial stages, but Quinn was making some progress. Project Sub-Zero. Series 1, Formula number 27, announced Quinn, reading from a sheet of paper that had S1F number 19 written on it. Project Sub-Zero. Absolute Zero was the alchemic material that Quinn had found inside the first vault, the Icy Vault. It was an alchemic material that was at a perpetual temperature of 0 Kelvin. The paradoxical material contained cold energy capable of dropping the temperature of anything it came in direct contact with to 0 Kelvin. It was the physical incarnation of infinite cold. And while Quinn couldn't get it out yet, he wasn't going to miss the chance to research it. So twice or thrice a month, Quinn would go down into the vault and collect samples of the cold energy for research. There was no information on Absolute Zero except the description. Quinn had scoured the room of requirement library to find any information on Absolute Zero but couldn't find a creation methodology, or a clue to get started. It was a magic lost to the world. Project Sub-Zero was Quinn's attempt to study Absolute Zero. So that one day, he could create the alchemic marvel himself. It was an experimental approach where Quinn began at 273 Kelvin and made his way down to 0 Kelvin. He had divided the project into 6 stages. Stage 1, S1, 273K to 224K. Stage 2, S2, 223.99K to 175K. Stage 3, S3, 174.99K to 126K. Stage 4, S4, 125.99K to 77K. Stage 5, S5, 76.99K to 28K. Stage 6, S6, 27.99K to 0K. The first 5 stages had a 49 Kelvin range, the square of the most magical number, 7. But in the last stage, S6 had the remaining 28 Kelvin, which was in a 7 times 4 range. It had the power of 7 and a stable foundation of 4. The 6th stage signified that, after 6 stages, Quinn would reach the perfect 7th stage and obtain the paradoxical yet stable Absolute Zero. Quinn chose the above stages as each would be a milestone in his quest to create Absolute Zero. Seeing that Quinn was operating on S1F number 19 meant that he was still in the initial leg of the project. F number 18 showed the temperature of 209 K by -63.15 degrees Celsius. 5 degrees lower than F number 17, recited Quinn as he took notes under S1 F number 19 paper. But F number 18 was unstable and broke down in under 10 minutes. F number 19 is the attempt to solve the instability of F number 18 and create a stable formula with the temperature of 209 K by minus 63.15 degrees Celsius or below. Quinn lit up a fire and placed a potion cauldron on it. Alchemy, or at least the alchemy Quinn knew, closely resembled potion brewing as it required a cauldron. Slowly Quinn added the ingredients into the cauldrons according to the formula. There were a lot of processed ingredients, like liquid essence extracted from plants, magically treated plant roots, frozen animal organs, transfigured filings of metal, and other ingredients that Quinn had chosen for S1 F number 19. After adjusting the heat and stirring at predefined times to activate the ingredients, came some steps that set apart alchemy from potion brewing. When the mixture inside the cauldron was at the optimal state for the next step, Quinn took a deep breath and raised his hands over the cauldron, and magic flowed. Potion brewing didn't have a place for spells because they could incite instability in the influx mixtures brewing inside the cauldron. But alchemy did precisely that and introduced external magic into the mix. Quinn, with the utmost caution, injected his magic through alchemic transformation spells. His eyes observed the mixture for any signs of deviation. Any signs of trouble could cause the mixture to deteriorate into instability. The worst outcome would result in the cauldron exploding, which would heavily harm Quinn in the process. This was the reason such a small number of people pursued alchemy. There was a risk in every alchemic brew. A mistimed decision due to a lapse in concentration could cause injuries. That is why, even among those who did pursue alchemy, many didn't proceed further because their spell work wasn't good enough to safely perform alchemy. Of course, not all failed attempts exploded and caused drastic injuries. If one didn't make any major mistakes, the outcome would be a failed cauldron full of sludge. But why tempt fate and attempt a magic that had such high standards? With an observant gaze and a tight hold on his magic, Quinn injected property-adding charms, state-changing transmutations, and stabilizing flashes of transfiguration. The initially yellow mixture turned brown, which indicated it was time for the next step. He immediately picked up a bronze metal disc from the ground and carefully covered the cauldron. He used the disc as a lid cover. The second the disc covered the cauldron, Quinn dimmed the heat to a simmer. Quinn relaxed his body as he exhaled a breath he didn't know he was holding. He walked to the desk at a distance from the cauldron and took the inactive downtime to note his observation. Quinn picked up a pen and started writing. S1F number 19 has passed both the ingredient activation stage and active magic injection stage. There were no noted anomalies, though the magically treated cold-resistant aluminum gave the initial mixture a yellow color. The cured brown color shows that there was a resonance between the elements, showing signs of binding and stability. Quinn raised his head and looked at the cauldron before looking back at the table and continuing. Estimated binding time is 15 minutes with an error margin of 3 minutes. The required temperature is 300 degrees Celsius. After writing down the notes, Quinn didn't sit down and relax for the next 15 minutes but got up and moved to another table with a white cloth covering the tabletop. On the tabletop, there was a cloth-covered cage and a small potion vial. Quinn removed the cloth from the cage and, immediately, 3 rats squeaked from the sudden exposure to light. Quinn looked at the rats and magically held 2 rats down as the 3rd rat floated outside the now open gate. The 3 rats were provided to him by Poppy for healing practice. The one he took out was a perfectly healthy rat in which Quinn would perform wound healing. The other 2 rats were sick rats with diseases that Quinn practiced cure healing magic on. He had no idea what the diseases were, and needed to first identify the illness from their symptoms and, then, cure them with healing spells or healing potions. "You 2 will come later," said Quinn to the 2 sick-looking rats. "So sit tight because the doctor will see you in a bit." Quinn again covered the cage with a cloth and floated off the table to the floor. He looked at the squealing rat pinned to the white table. With a twitch of his magic, all the hair from the rat disappeared and turned into an ugly hairless rat. Quinn picked up the potion vial and, after uncapping the lid, a drop of potion flew out of the vial and entered the rat's mouth. The squealing rat slowly turned quiet and fell unconscious. The potion was a magic anesthetic with a sleeping component attached to it. "Don't worry, buddy, this won't hurt at all," muttered Quinn as he looked at the unconscious rat. A small cut appeared on the rat's hairless skin with trace amounts of blood leaking from the wound. Quinn stared at the cut wound as he funneled magic onto the cut wound. Like magic, the blood stopped leaking, the cut knitted back, joining the two sides of the cut together, healing the rat's body like the cut never existed. Success, smiled Quinn and shot a diagnostic charm at the rat to see the overall condition. The results came back positive as the rat was at full health, albeit with a slight blood loss. Nothing dangerous. Let's try the bones, said Quinn to himself and broke the rat's leg bone with magic. By now, Quinn was used to harming unconscious rats, and breaking bones or detaching limbs elicited nothing out of Quinn. Once again, Quinn molded his magic as he knitted back the broken bones and healed the muscles, blood vessels, nerves back to normal. The heal was performed phenomenally, and when the rat eventually woke up, he won't notice a difference. Snip snip, clicked Quinn with his tongue as the rat's tail came off from its body. Operation Tail Reattachment. Beginning now. Without moving his hand or arms, Quinn's magic held the detached tail of the rat's body and used healing magic to reattach it. The muscle and skin from both wriggled as they knitted back together. When the outer layer was reattached, the thin bones set themselves together and clicked back together with magic. After that, Quinn continued to perform the list of activities on the unconscious rats given to him by Poppy. When 10 minutes passed, Quinn stopped harming and healing the rat and moved back to the cauldron before the time was up. He used a spell to check the internal temperature, and the result showed that it was about to get to the desired level. Quinn wore his protective gloves and safety goggles and removed the bronze metal lid from the top after the temperature reached the optimal level. Excellent, grinned Quinn when he saw the change in the downtime. The brown boiling mixture had turned into transparent bubbling viscous liquid. The brown had a heavy sour smell, but the transparent liquid was scent-free. Time to remove it from heat, said Quinn as he cut the heat at the bottom of the cauldron, and then Quinn's eyes shined with focus because it was now time for the last stretch of the process. Quinn's magic flowed out of his body and assaulted every drop of the transparent liquid with chilling cold. Ice magic came in contact and bled inside the potion, and reached everywhere inside the thick viscous liquid. The ice magic thrummed with activity as an icy blue light started to taint the transparent liquid. Quinn kept on dropping the internal temperature and the icy blue color deepened. After a minute of channeling magic, the liquid lit up with a brilliant light. The ethereal light reflected inside Quinn's eyes as he cut the supply of ice magic and stepped back a couple of steps. A smile lengthened on his lips as he saw the condensation appear on the cauldron's outside and froze into a white cover of ice. Quinn waited till the blue light dimmed to a level that it was faintly present before raising his hand and, with his rising hand, the contents inside the cauldron were levitated outside. The faintly shining liquid floated in the air as Quinn did a temperature and pumped his hands up and celebrated. 207 K, 2 Kelvin less than expected. Quinn danced around the floating S1F number 19 in celebration. But after celebrating the initial celebration, Quinn conjured an iron rod in his hand. Flame on, grinned Quinn and bombarded the conjured rod with powerful heat magic. Focusing his magic so that it would be concentrated on the other end. Come on, get nice and hot, so Papa can hear some sizzling goodness. The moment the quarter of the rod was red hot, Quinn gestured with his fingers, and half of the liquid broke from the floating blob and flew towards Quinn. Quinn brought it so that it was floating at his knee level. He held the iron rod in a reverse grip before stabbing it inside the viscous liquid. Immediately, there was intense sizzling as the iron rod cooled down rapidly, and within seconds, the iron rod had lost all the heat. Quinn removed the rod and threw it away. The rod vanished mid-flight. Wasting no time, Quinn checked the temperature of the cold liquid in front of him, and the spell showed him the temperature 210 K. The temperature had risen 3 Kelvin. Wait, Quinn raised his hand as if quieting a crowd around him. He watched as, within seconds, the temperature went back to 207 K. Quinn threw his arms up and announced, "We've done it, people. It has enough energy to recover. It is stable, it is beautiful, and finally, it is cold. It is Quinn made." Not really thinking that the only ones who could hear his celebration announcements were 2 rats with hair, and 1 hairless rat who had woken up from the potion's effects. The 2 halves merged back together, and they floated to a container that Quinn had prepared for it. The containers were also a progressive project because these containers also got stronger as Quinn continued to improve on Project Sub-Zero. Plus, as Quinn had been working on containment longer than Project Sub-Zero, he was way ahead in containment technology. Quinn hummed in pleasure and joy to the table to make notes, and after that, his day continued to get better because that day, none of his 3 rats died. This only happened maybe thrice a week because Quinn usually ended up killing the healthy rat, after failing to heal a critical injury quick enough. This marks the end of part 31 of the story, Magical Journey in Harry Potter World. Thank you for listening. Please like the video and hit the subscribe button to listen more. Hit the bell icon to get notified of all the new content uploaded to the channel ASAP.